And in our top story this hour, the former Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba says the path to prosperity in South Africa will be an arduous and treacherous one. But South Africans have the responsibility to vote for a party that will lead the country in the right direction. Mashaba addressed the virtual launch of his new party, Action SA. He outlined some of the changes his party will make if they're elected to govern.
As a people, we have traveled a long and difficult journey. After our painful and divided past, we merged into the light of democracy with hopes and dreams and a belief in the prospect of building a new country. I remember a feeling of sense of pride when I could stand in a long queue with my diverse fellow South Africans to vote in 1994. I was finally a citizen in a country of my birth. I believe we would see an explosion of opportunity as the shackles of our past had been broken by great men and women who had achieved the impossible in South Africa. But, like you, I came to see how our country fell into the hands of evil people who inflicted pain and suffering on the poor of our country through their greed and failure. 26 years into our democracy, South Africans are suffering. We suffer from the highest levels of inequality. We suffer from an economy that does not grow, leaving 10 million people unemployed and families destroyed by the stress of hunger. We suffer from levels of crime that leave law-abiding citizens living in fear, while criminals roam our streets with impunity. We suffer from an education system that grooms our young people for nothing better than unemployment. We suffer from racial division and hatred and betrayal of our promise that every South African is equal and valued. We suffer from a government that has taken us backwards, not forward, that loots the funds meant to deliver opportunity, dignity, and services to the people of our country. We suffer greatly as a people. But, my fellow South Africans, if there's one thing I know about the people of this country, is that we are resilient. We have endured hardship and prevailed. We succeeded in spite of our government, not because of it. We believe even when there's little to believe in. And let me tell you today, we are the majority in our country. We are not the radicals who hate and sow divisions amongst us. We are not the criminals, the extremist, the corrupt, or the racist. We are the good, hardworking, law-abiding, family-oriented, and freedom-loving people of our beloved country. We are the South Africans who love our country, hate what has been done to it, but have given up on the political system because it does not give us cause for hope. We are the greater people of this country, the silent ones, the unseen and ignored. We are black, we are white, we are Indian, we are colored, we are young, we are old, we live in cities, we live in villages, we are heterosexuals, we are LGBTQIs, we are men, we are women, and all have had enough. Because we have been silent for too long. We have given power to the noise of the few who claim to speak for us, but not anymore. Our voices are rising and rising. We are ready to take action and take back the future of our country. There's nothing as powerful in this world that does that moment when good people realize that they are the majority and stand together to change the course of history of our country. Today, I stand before you to offer you hope in the face of our despair. I stand before you today to launch a new future of our country in the face of our national depression. I stand before you today to tell you with a deep sense of conviction that we will emerge from the depth of our despair and enter a new era of prosperity. Make no mistake, it will not be easy. We face the grim prospect of 3 to 7 million more South Africans joining the ranks of the unemployed in the wake of COVID-19. We face trade unions that will protect their members at the expense of the unemployed. We face political parties who want to divide us because they are threatened by the positive change that we threaten to bring. However, if there's one thing that I've learned by engaging South Africans through the People's Dialogue, is that together we will overcome and prevail. Today, I'm proud to announce the values which together we have carved into the foundation of bedrock on which our vision for South Africa will be built. We stand with the majority of South Africans for a non-racial future. I affirm today that this non-negotiable truth that every South African has an equal and intrinsic value, no less, no more than any other.
And now to discuss Action SA's chances of making it in the political sphere, we joined via Zoom by political analyst Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Dr. Breakfast, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel.
Thank you very much for having me, madam.
All right, so let's just firstly get an understanding. Who is Herman Mashaba, more so in a political perspective?
Look, I've got mixed feelings about the issue in question, simply because on the one hand, in as much as I do concede that he does have strong points as a leader in the sense that he does have a good track record of rendering various services while he was holding the position of mayorship in Johannesburg. Before that, he was a businessman who comes from humble beginnings. On the other hand, when one examines the political spectrum in South Africa, one sees that the political spectrum at the moment is fragmented, and that weakens the maneuverability of opposition parties, in the sense that in order for opposition parties to pose a threat to the dominance of the ANC, they need to function as a unified force. They need to function as a bloc. So I'm not sure if he's ushering in is a breath of fresh air. The other issue is that when you look at his economic policies, I get the sense that they are the same as those ones of the DA, because he kept on speaking about economic growth and believing that if you grow the economy, there will be a trickling down effect, meaning that if you grow the economy, the effects of economic growth will be felt by the poorest of the poor on the ground. But we know that that model of development, it doesn't work. So I thought maybe there was going to be something more radical than what we have heard before.
All right, and we have almost 50 political parties in the country. I think what many South Africans are asking themselves is there a need for another one?
Look, Section 19 of the Constitution stipulates that everyone has a right to form a political party, to be involved in any political activities. So there is a constitutional provision for that. But at a strategic level, if you are arguing that you want to dislodge the ANC from power, I think you need to with other political parties which are already in existence. So it could have been better if he had other strategic alliances with like-minded political parties. You don't have to be friends with political parties that differ with you, but you need those allyship relations in order to crush your opponent. I like his energy. He strikes me as a person who is going on the offensive, which is all well and good. But the concern that I have, again, is his language on security. He spoke about the need for security reforms, which is all well and good. I support that because you know as well as I do that we have a broken SABC. We need to restore faith in SABC. But he was talking about a police force. In South Africa, we don't have a police force. That's an apartheid style of a policing. In South Africa, we have a police service. So I think he needs to guard against that, because the reason why we have things like police brutality is simply because of the excessive use of force or the projection of a force. So I was a bit taken aback by that language.
So we had Herman Mashaba on the channel last night, and he's very adamant that his party's sole focus will be to unseat the ANC. The party has also committed to contesting the 2021 elections in Johannesburg, Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, and has suggested that it may contest other metros across the country. What's your take on this?
Look, local government elections are just around the corner. So I think he is going to have a footprint there. He might, I suspect, that maybe join forces with other political parties at local government level in terms of forming coalition arrangements or power sharing. But it must be borne in mind that politics is not only about what you believe in, but politics is about maneuverability. That's why I want to stress this point that he needs to have strategic alliances. If he wants to outmaneuver the ANC, he cannot do it by himself.
And you've touched a bit on his economic policy. We've seen the party's draft policy document previously, and it broadly reflects Mashaba's values for support for the free market, also privatization of state-owned entities, the reform of labor laws, and a crackdown on corruption. And the question really is he offering anything different from the political parties that we have already in the playing field? How different are these values from those of other opposition parties in the country?
That model of development is called neoliberalism, which is the total deregulation of the market, the elevation of the market forces above the state. That approach doesn't work. It doesn't mean that if you grow the economy, there will be a trickling down effect. We saw what had happened during the epoch of Guille. We had an economy which was growing. On the other hand, inequality was also escalating. In South Africa, whether you like it or not, you have the bulk of the working class. So if you introduce market-friendly policies, I can bet my bottom dollar the working class will resist, and it will resist hard.
And what do you make of the caliber of leaders or staff members within these political parties? We know that Mashaba's national chairperson, Michael Bimond, was also there, a DA former staffer who served as his chief of staff in the city of Johannesburg. The former City of Johannesburg policy director, Andre Kotsie, is the party's chief strategist now. Mashaba's successor is DA leader in Johannesburg, Funzela Ngobeni, is the chief of operations, and many others, including the likes of Makosi Kosa and Feki Mentu as well. What do you make of those?
Yeah, normally the weakness of new opposition parties is that they tend to revolve around certain personalities. So it's good that he has brought in some people who are also known by the public, so that he is not the only one who is under the spotlight all the time. And I think that was a good move.
And we know that Mr. Mashaba has a very strong business background, so does President Cyril Ramaphosa. What similarities can be drawn perhaps from these two leaders, more so in this political sphere?
Yeah, I think if one compares the two, I don't think that one is comparing apples with apples. I think he's a different kettle of fish. I mean, he's a different ball game altogether, in the sense that he doesn't have struggle credentials. He has never gone to the trenches, as opposed to Ramaphosa, who comes from the background of the union and so on. But I like the fact that he's a very disciplined person who is driven by family values. We saw his family there. And that is good, because I think as citizens, we take our cue from our leaders.
And we know that when he resigned as the DA member and Johannesburg Mayor in October last year, this was, of course, after Helen Zille was elected into that position of a chairperson of the party's Federal Council. Part of what he said that he couldn't reconcile himself with a group of people who believe that race is irrelevant in the discussion of inequality and poverty in South Africa. Is he likely to tap into the DA's black voters going forward with this political party?
No, of course, in particular in Johannesburg, I think he's got a strong footprint there. But I think he needs to expand his footprint through the length and the breadth of the country. But I think also even other, I would say, racial categories, they seem to be embracing his political party as well. So I don't think that his focus is only on the black constituency.
All right, so now taking into consideration the developments that we are seeing now playing out in the ruling party and of course in other political parties here in the country, do you think that this Action SA could be an alternative to many South Africans? I mean, we've had a number of people with the previous election saying that they couldn't vote because they just did not know which political party to relate with. So would this be an alternative to many who had lost hope in other political parties?
Partly yes and partly no. I'll tell you why. Because the greatest advantage of the ANC is its collective memory. The ANC is a liberation movement. During elections, they normally invoke the language of anti-colonialism, anti-imperialism, the return of the stolen land. Those things have a psychological effect. On the other hand, other opposition parties don't have that. Maybe with the exception of the PAC and Azapo. But even those ones, I don't think that they have repositioned themselves very well post 1994. So I don't think that Herman Mashaba does have that political capital to pose a threat to the ANC by himself, unless he joins forces with other like-minded people.
All right, time constraints, we have to leave it at that, but we thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you very much, madam.
All right, well, there you have it. That's Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, a political analyst, talking to us about the newly launched political party by the former Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba, Action SA.